It's time for Southern Kentucky's Great Outdoors on ESPN 1027 FM. Brought to you by Bowling Green Refrigeration, Heating and Cooling and Renegade Marine and Outdoor Center. With your host, Brian Webb. Also starring John Kirby and Sergeant J.D. Williams from Mohawk Outdoors. Josh Honeycutt from Realtree Outdoors. Also made possible by Swagger Bipods, the Van Store Bowling Green and Glasgow. Your Can-Am headquarters. Introducing Pabst Beef Jerky. Our national sponsor, Big & J Long Range Attractants. Segments in part by Rockcastle Shooting Center, The Rock, and Renegade Marine, featuring Realtree's Michael Pendley Timber 2 Table Wild Game Recipes. Made possible by Outback Steakhouse, Bowling Green. And all phone interviews via the Linex of Bowling Green hotline. Get ready for all things outdoors. Here's your host, Brian Webb.
Hello and welcome to another episode of your favorite outdoor show. It's the only outdoor show other than Field and Stream, or Kentucky at Field, rather. But we're joining you here on a Wednesday, beautiful day. A little hot, getting ready to get Timber to Table on with Michael Pendley. But before that, let's catch up with our co-hosts, John Kirby and Josh Honeycutt. John, I just can't imagine sitting in a deer stand today. My gosh.
Yeah, pretty rough out there, man. It's hot. I actually was doing some work today, getting some deer hunting stuff together, and man, I just went in and got swimming trunks instead. It's just too hot, man, I tell you.
They were probably soaking wet and you never hit the pool.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I mean, you know, the thing is, and Josh can tell you, as hot as it is, there's still big deer killed early season when it's hot. Josh, I mean, every year, a lot of people kill big deer when it's hot.
Yeah, I went out last night and saw a big deer, and it was just as hot yesterday as it is today almost.
Right.
So
yeah,
they're still moving in the heat. It's rough on us, and it's definitely rough on the deer, but they're still going to be moving as long as really the biggest factor this time of year is whether or not you pressured them. And if you haven't pressured your deer, they're still going to move in daylight, even if it is warm out.
Yep, and a lot of acorns dropping like we talked about the last couple of weeks, Josh. That's going to kind of throw a curveball in there for some people.
Yep, absolutely. And like I said, there's some patterns that's already starting to change. I've already noticed I've got one big deer that was really the number one buck on my hit list. He has disappeared. He is no longer on any of my cameras. I have not seen him in person within the last month. Same story with my number 3 target buck and also with my number 5 target buck. So they're starting to change.
Yep, for sure.
But on the flip side, I've had some new deer show up that have been basically their replacements. So.
Yep, that's the backside of that coin. You know, there's a double-edged sword there for sure.
Yep. Great stuff. Catch-22, conundrum,
Absolutely.
However you want to go with that one, John. But before that, like Josh alluded to, deer still got to eat. And guess what? Us humans got to eat too. And for a limited time at your Outback Steakhouse right here in Bowling Green off exit 22, there's Scottsville Road. It's back. Pair one of our tender, juicy steaks with unlimited crispy shrimp or garlic herb butter shrimp. Garrett's loving every minute of that. Center cut sirloin or a Victorious filet mignon and unlimited shrimp. Center cut sirloin or tender, juicy filet paired with your choice. You can get fried golden and cocktail sauce or some volcano sauce. John, you like that spicy stuff, don't you?
Absolutely, buddy.
Garrett, we need a defibrillator. Garrett fell out right here on the floor. Don't think twice about getting in there and doing that often while it's on because it doesn't stay around forever. Unlimited shrimp along with a steak at Outback Steakhouse right here on the Linex hotline. Linex bedliners, Roger Gino. We got a guy who knows how to make a steak right there in his backyard. He doesn't need much, just a fire and something to light it with. Michael Pendley, Timber to Table, Realtree Outdoors. What's going on, Mike?
How's it going, guys?
We're good, man. Listen, first of all, you've probably been eating some dove here the last couple of days because you and the fam went out and went after them 2 days in a row. I know it was probably hot, but how many did you see? And did anybody shoot at a low bird?
Yeah, we hunted a couple of public fields first 2 days of season, and every year I say I'm not going to do that again, and every year I do it again.
It looked like you were in a concert, Michael, with all the trucks in the parking lot.
Nobody got scalped.
It was packed.
Nobody got scalped with a load of bird shot, did they?
There were a few low birds shot at, a few words spoken. Low birds shot at. and a few words spoken about people sitting up about 30 yards away from us facing us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the second day.
Did you give them heck, Pendley?
It's a public field, so it is what it is.
You didn't give them heck, did you?
I called them a few things.
You kept it churchly, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's another story for another day. But,
well, did y'all get your limit?
The question is, can you say what you said on the radio?
Absolutely not.
Oh, that's a good way to dig it out of him, Josh.
Yeah.
I was making up words by the time I ran out of breath.
Doing old Brian Webb there. Just make up a word if you have to.
Yeah. But we shot a few. We didn't shoot limits. It was crowded. It was hot. But we shot a few birds, probably enough for dinner here before too long. So it won't be long. And we'll be hitting some private fields here in the next few weeks, too. So hopefully we'll add to that total and come up with a few different recipes.
Oh, we're not worried. The Dove are worried. We're not. Well, what have you been frying up? Because I've been noticing some great posts you've been sharing. What we got tonight, big fella?
Well, we're going to talk squirrel again tonight. You know, squirrel season's still in, and pot roast is still bringing a few in here and there. And so, you know, everybody loves fried squirrel, but the best squirrels to fry like that are really young because they're tender. You know, you can eat them like chicken. And once they start to get a little age on them, when you try to fry them up sometimes, just straight frying them, they can be pretty tough and chewy. A couple ways you can get around that. You can pressure cook them for a little while and then fry them. You can fry them and then pressure cook them. You can fry them for a really long time on low heat with a lid on the skillet. But that kind of makes your crust a little bit soggy, and you don't always get that same texture that you do, you know, just doing standard chicken fried squirrel. But the recipe we posted today, Timber to Table, is kind of my favorite way to cook an older squirrel if I want it fried with a little gravy on it. And you can't eat fried squirrel without gravy, so you might as well do both of them at the same time.
Yeah, I don't know. Pouring gravy on anything is probably a pretty good choice.
It's always a plus.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody ought to have gravy at all times. Every restaurant should offer gravy as a side, too.
That's true.
Yeah.
But, you know, the way we did this, we take, if you got some older squirrels and you want to fry them and have gravy with them, just go ahead and we mixed up the dreads with a little bit of Cajun seasoning, a little bit of red pepper to give it some kick. Registered squirrels, just like we always do, fried them in a little oil, or technically I used a little lard because I love lard for fried chicken or fried squirrel or fried rabbit. But anyway, we fried them. We browned them really well on both sides, you know, just cooked them through. And then we moved them to a baking dish. Made our gravy just like we always would, except we used a little bit of extra milk so that it was pretty thin, and there was a lot of it. We pour that gravy over the top of the squirrel in that dish. Take a spoon, you know, spoon it over the top of each piece, make sure everything's coated real well, and then put the whole thing in the oven and bake it for 30 to 45 minutes or so. Just let that squirrel get tender in that gravy. And then when you serve it, you know, serve some mashed potatoes with it. Put some of that gravy out of the pan in on top of the mashed potatoes too. And you're good to go even with an older squirrel that way.
Yeah, that sounds good. You know, it's funny. The whole time you're talking about getting ready to fire that recipe up, and I'm looking at it right now, 60-minute cook time. You're right. That is a long time.
Yeah.
But got to thinking, Mike, you know, how squirrels will, you know, in the wintertime, you can't find them because they're burrowed in. But, you know, in the summertime, they still got to get out of the heat, and they've got, you know, little spots in trees and that sort of thing, and little tunnel systems and all that. I guarantee you, if we sent one of those long, you know, snake cams down into one of those, there's a picture of pot roast Pendley and their public enemy number one.
He stays after him pretty well, and I think he's about to get a squirrel dog pup too. So we'll really be in trouble if that happens.
That's awesome, Michael. How do you choose, man? What's your favorite, brown gravy or white gravy, and how do you choose between the two?
I like them both, but if I had to pick just one, it would be white gravy with a lot of pepper in it.
Yeah, and I know that's the answer to that question is dependent, I guess, a lot of times on what you're cooking, right? What are some things maybe where you'd go to a brown gravy over a white gravy?
Yeah, if I was doing a pot roast with, venison or elk or even beef or whatever, a long, slow-cooked roast like that, red meat with carrots and potatoes, I would go brown gravy on that. Sometimes with pork chops, I'll go brown gravy if I'm grilling them or frying them or whatever. If I'm frying something like chicken, that type of recipe, be it squirrel, rabbit, whatever, I generally go with white gravy and then always white gravy for breakfast. So,
Michael, what would it cost for me to make you my personal chef? Just a estimate out there, eyeball number?
We could probably work something out.
I bet that's not the first time you've been asked that from people that could actually afford you. That's,
Garrett, do you need a roommate?
yeah, Garrett, can we live upstairs? Oh, that's good stuff. Mike, what else is going on, man? You guys getting ready for deer season just like these boys are, I guess.
We are. Listening, coming on there. Same deal up here. The acres have started falling. One of Pot Roast target bucks has shed his velvet already. We got pictures of him yesterday with a hard antler. And he's quit showing up at daylight. He was pretty regular there a couple of weeks ago. He'd come in about every evening to the food plot. Now he's only showing up in the middle of the night. The other buck's still in velvet. He's still with the bachelor group, and they're still showing up fairly often in the evening. So, it's starting to change up here, too. And acorns are falling. Same with squirrels. The squirrels are not in the trees that they were in when season opened 2 weeks ago. They've moved on and started hitting some of the oaks, too. But it's, and just like Josh said, we've had a new buck show up when we checked the camera yesterday, one that we've never seen before. So they're moving around now. It's that time, and I don't think we're going to see a lot of velvet deer killed in the state this year. I think a lot of them's going to be shed this weekend.
It seems like they're shedding a little bit earlier this year than last year. I know it seemed like the average shed date, based on my trail camera photos, last year was somewhere between probably around the 6th or the 7th. I know I already had deer out in early, before that, but it seemed like the average day was around the 6th to 7th last year. And it's probably going to be a little bit earlier than that this year, in my opinion.
I think so, too, yeah. And I wonder if it was the dry summer that had any effect on that.
Yeah, I've always wondered that. That's something that I've always wondered and never really have received an answer to. I don't know if there is a scientific – I'm sure there is a scientific explanation. But, yeah, that's definitely something that's going to be a big factor this year. How has, up there as far as the volume of acorns, how has it been in the northern half of the state? We don't have a huge, heavy crop down here this year, but as you said, the acorns that we do have seem to be falling earlier.
Yeah, they're starting to hit the ground now, and we've got a pretty good crop this year. And I've talked to some people that are east of us in the eastern half of the state, and they've got a really good crop this year. So should be some mountain bucks that are well fed this fall.
Yes, you either got them or you don't this year, kind of seems like. Michael, kind of switching gears there, what kind of reports are you hearing up in your area, northern half of the state, about EHD?
We're seeing quite a bit of it. Luckily, I'm knocking on wood here as I'm talking. We've not found any around the water holes here at the house, but I've got a buddy that's found 3 really nice bucks and a couple of young bucks.
Really? So that's interesting. I didn't realize it made it that far east up there because...
Yeah, and this is even almost an hour east of us. It's up around Cynthiana. So, he's been hit pretty hard.
That's news, too, because about all of the EHD that I've heard of so far has been the western half of the state.
Yeah, well, I did get a couple of confirmed reports. I guess it's been about 3 or 4 days ago, and this is confirmed that there were four deer found on Nolan Lake. So it definitely has made it further east than we realized.
Yeah.
Which, Nolan's in our backyard.
Yeah.
Man, you guys are funny, though, because, during the intro, Josh was talking about his number 1 hit list, his 3 hit list. John's talking about it. I can just see you guys you're like an organized crime unit that has the stuff on the boards with all the little, twine.
The twine.
Connecting everything. That's what you guys remind me of, dude. It's so funny.
Yeah. We plug in the trail camera and start going through the pictures, and we recognize every deer instantly.
That's crazy.
And as soon as a new one shows up, we all look at each other and say, hey, that's a new deer. we've not seen that one. So
that's awesome, man. It's always a pleasure. You can follow him on Twitter at MickeyPenn70, and then Mickey Penn Eats on Instagram, and read him all the time on Realtree Outdoors. Man, appreciate you so much, Pendley.
thanks, guys.
Thanks, Michael.
Absolutely. Outback Steakhouse, thank you for their sponsorship. Continued on Timber to Table here on SOKY's Great Outdoors. We're going to come back. We're going to dive in to some fishing. Fishing been a little slow here lately, Kirby. I don't know, man. It's kind of that fishing. You know, you guys talk about the myth of the October lull. It's kind of the fishing lull right now, you know, if you think about it.
It's kind of been the story, hasn't it, lately?
It really
has. Brian, and we got Michael Bean, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And so if anybody's catching them, we know it's going to be Michael Bean.
And I don't know that he's been that much. So maybe he can give us some ideas on how, if you know, because some guys, I mean, you get your vacation when you get it, and you want to spend it on the lake. A lot of guys, you know, we're getting ready for deer hunting. So, but the ones that want to spend it on the lake, they're kind of like, you know, blank out of luck, you know, because it's just not happening much right now. So we're going to take a quick break, come back with Josh Honeycutt, John Kirby, myself, Brian Webb, Garrett Browning behind the board. Don't go anywhere. Southern Kentucky's Great Outdoors, ESPN Radio 102.7.
Earl, where in the Sam Hill have you been? I called you an hour ago.
Luann, I had to load the boat and stop for some soda pops.
Well, I'm sure glad you're including me in your priorities. They are still not working. Now the chair is stuck to my hind end, Earl. That is not funny. If I don't get this chair loose, it's liable to ruin my new, fun summer shorty shorts.
all right. Get in the bed of the truck.
What?
I'll take you to...
No.
You can't fit in the cab with that chair stuck to your backside, Luann.
This is ridiculous.
The doctor will see you now.
What seems to be the problem?
Well, obviously this chair is stuck to my fanny.
Actually, I've seen this before. It's called sticky chair. First thing, you must turn to the experts at Bowling Green Refrigeration, Heating and Cooling for your Carrier unit.
Ours is one of them others.
Don't worry, they service Carrier and all other brands. Now, Earl, if you lend me a hand, let's get this chair.
Hold still, Luann. 1, 2.
Ouch!
Sweat, combined with furniture, can cause sticky chair. Take preventative measures now with Bowling Green Refrigeration, Heating and Cooling, servicing Carrier and all others. 270-782-5391.
Okay, I'm on 65 right now. Which exit do I take?
You're going to want to take I-165.
No, I'm on I-65.
No, take I-165. Should be on the sign.
I'm pretty sure that's not a 1 there. I'm pretty sure that's just another I. I-65?
Aye. Well, ahoy, Polloy.
Look, I'm looking at it. I just don't see a 1 there. It's just I-6.
Suffering from post-natural confusion? See Gary Force Paint and Body Shop. iCar Gold Shop, certified with a lifetime warranty. 311 Vanderbilt Drive behind the Scottsville Road Post Office.
Man, that looks rough. That one got whacked good.
Yeah, I do know I'm getting sick of cleaning it up.
But it's all about the pay in the long run, right?
Yeah, you're right, but it'd be easier to quicker to go out and take us to Linex of Bowling Green.
Well, in the end, it's all about getting those hogs delivered, right?
You're right, but it sure is a mess. Forget about it.
Keep your bed easy to clean with Linex of Bowling Green. Truck accessories and more. Linex of Bowling Green on Louisville Road, Porter Pike intersection.
Although hunting to most of us is much more than just harvesting animals, why not better your deer herd's health with Big & J Long Range Attractant? Big & J is highly digestible, high in protein, and isn't full of preservatives. With Big & J Long Range Attractants, you're not only exploiting one of the few weaknesses whitetails have, their stomachs, but you're maximizing antler growth, improving overall herd health, and pulling deer from your neighbor's property. So whether your goals are to fill the freezer, kill mature bucks, or both, Big & J Long Range Attractants will stack the odds in your favor, all the while making your deer herd bigger and healthier.
You're going to need a bigger boat.
It's time to go fishing with Renegade Marine and Outdoor Center, 415 Commerce Drive, Litchfield, Kentucky, on SOKY's Great Outdoors.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming on back with us. Southern Kentucky's Great Outdoors here on ESPN 102.7. John Kirby in the house, Josh Honeycutt. Brian Webb here, your host, and wanted to talk to you a little bit about this guy. He's a tournament fisherman, semi-pro. He wouldn't tell you that, but he's pretty much a pro. If that's all he had to do, he'd be a pro. Welcoming in on the Linex hotline, Mr. Michael Bean, also a fireman. What's going on, Mike?
Oh, not much. How are you guys doing this evening?
Dude, we're great. First of all, I want to thank you guys for putting that gigantic American flag out. I love that thing.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. It's a pretty big task to get that put up and taken down each time we display it, but it's worth it.
I love it, yep. I love the big old American flags that just stand out, tower over everything. I love it, for sure. Michael, man, we're hanging on the cliff here waiting for you to give us a good fishing report. What's it been like?
Oh, I told Brian earlier, it's been, at least a week since I've been able to be on the water. Of course, we had a holiday the last weekend, but the weekend before that, I fished a night tournament over at Barron, and the bite was actually really good. There's still some good weights being turned in over at Barron. A lot of the guys are still fishing night tournaments, which typically run, 6 to 9 or 6 to 1 in the morning, but still some big fish being turned in. I heard last Saturday they had one, and I think big fish at the tournament was still like a 5, 7, 9, almost a 6-pounder. So.
Nice. Well, that's a good report. Yeah. Are you still catching them, Michael, right now? Same place you were catching them a month ago? Or they haven't transitioned much from the haunch you were catching them a month ago, have they?
No, not a whole lot, but, fall's in the air. Temperatures started to cool off, and then we got hit with this week of 90s every day, where the water temperature before it started to cool down. Of course, when water temperature starts to cool down, those fish tend to migrate to the backs of creeks, following the shad, and all that fun stuff that happens during the fall time. But so far, the fish have been pretty much where they have been for the past month.
Yeah, and even with this hot weather, Michael, and like you alluded to last week, we had some actual seasonal weather. It's a little hotter now, but we're still having some cooler nights, and that really helps cool down that water temperature. So how far out are you thinking before we start seeing a big transition?
I think it's just on the cusp. It's fixing to happen. You're looking at next week, the highs being in the 80s, and I think I've seen some of the nights maybe down to the 50s and 60s. So that's going to cool that water temperature down quite a bit, and those fish are going to start being more active. And another thing that, kind of a phenomenon that happens this time of year is lake turnover. That also, affects the fish and how they set up and the oxygen in the water and stuff like that. But I haven't been over to the lake in a week or so, but I'm getting reports that the lake's already starting to turn over. You can always tell that by, the smell when you drive across the tailwater.
Absolutely. Pretty distinct smell. You can't miss it. You can't miss it.
Like my college bathroom is what it is.
Oh, you just gave me flashbacks, Webb.
Oh, yeah, Kirby, I think you were at my college bathroom. Man, Bean, I tell you, what is your favorite time? Is it spring or is it fall?
It just depends. Fishing, every time is my favorite time when it comes to fishing, right? But once you start getting into the late fall and early winter, especially after Thanksgiving, one of my favorite things to do by far is to go to Del Hollow and smallmouth fish. Absolutely blast getting, a little bit offshore and throwing an Alabama rig and swim bait and catching those smallmouth that, the springtime rolls around and those fish are hungry and trying to feed up before the spawn, and that's absolute blast also. The fish are just really feeding hard that time of the year. So,
what, Michael, you said obviously you fish all year long. What's your opinion on a lot of folks kind of hang it up, right? Hang the rods up and
yeah, that's
winterize
awesome for me. A lot of people quit and deer hunt, right?
Yep.
And, I've been asked that question a lot, and I know you guys talk a lot about deer hunting. I have a lot of hunters that follow the show, and for me, if I was sitting in a deer stand, I would be thinking, "This is crazy, man! I should be on the water."
I'm with you, Mike.
Yeah, November, December are awesome months to fish, and what's even better, as you alluded to, is that a lot of the fishermen kind of hang it up and head to the woods, and then you also have the pleasure boat, which is nice also. A lot of times you have the lake almost to yourself.
Yeah,
it's nice having that lake to yourself. I enjoy that myself, going up and all that traffic's gone and it's peaceful, and then you had a chance to catch a mess too that way. That's always a lot of fun. What about you and Renegade sponsored tournament trail? How'd you do this year? I haven't got to talk to you much in the last couple of months. I think we've both been door to door busy and just not had time. And I've had a lot of irons.
Yeah, I've got one coming up in October. I'll head up there, leave out probably on October the 4th to go up and start practicing Lake of the Ozarks, our last coast to stop. And man, I'm super pumped up about this tournament. Last year, going into day 2, I was sitting in 11th place, and just odds weren't in my favor. The weather changed, and lost a couple of key fish that kind of hurt. And when you're fishing against that kind of competition, you know, everything has to be smooth for things to work out. But definitely excited about going back again. I've already started, you know, getting my tackle ready, and the tournament's not till October, and I'm already starting to get my tackle ready and rods and everything ready, and just really pumped about going to that tournament.
Well, and you probably, you know, this year, you know, knowing that lake a little bit better, you know, I feel like that even gives you more of an advantage this year, you know?
Oh, yeah. Anytime you can get on a lake, you know, and fish it, the more times you fish it, you unlock a little bit more of the puzzle, so to speak, versus being completely new to a lake. So when I get there, you know, same time of the year, some of the parts of the puzzle are already put together in place for me. I've got, hey, I can go check this real quick, that real quick. 3 or 4 things that I know I've caught them on in the past, and go back and check those things and say, hey, is this where the fish are at? And so it's a good starting point. It also cuts down a lot of, you know, the mystery of a new lake.
What about Lake of the Ozarks? Probably, I'm sure, really clear lake, like a lot of those lakes in that area are. That probably adds to the home field advantage for guys that get to fish that lake a lot.
You know, I fished Table Rock this year, and I fished Lake of the Ozarks, both of those super clear lakes. And, you know, clear water, I'm used to fishing Dale Hollow, and clear water's never bothered me a whole lot. I know on Table Rock this year, guys were telling me, you know, you always get the dock talk that, you know, hey, you got to throw, you know, 6-pound line and a 3-inch swim bait, and, you know, to get those fish to bite. And so I just went and did my own thing. I was throwing 15-pound fluorocarbon and 5.5-inch swim baits, and those smallmouth were trying to jerk the rod out of my hand. So, you know, the clear water, sometimes I think people just look at that and go, kind of freak out. Oh, the water's clear, you know, the fish aren't going to bite, and that's not necessarily always the case.
Good stuff, man. Well, listen, we can't thank you enough. And, you know, if you had to tell guys right now that are thinking about getting after them this weekend, what's the best time to put your boat in right now? Is it late in the evening? Or?
September transition's over. I like to transition from night to day tournaments. You know, I like to get up there early and at daylight and start fishing. Like I said, people are still fishing at night, but I think the bottom line is any time that you have free time and get out there and get your boat on the water and get that time in is a good time.
Amen to that. And you can find a good one at Renegade Marine and Outdoor Center up in Litchfield, Kentucky. RenegadeMarine.net. Check it out. I was on there last night dreaming about. Got some good-looking 04s, 05s, and 06s up there for.
Yes, Sherbert has an awesome line of used boats. If you're not in the market for a new boat, and if you are in the market for a new boat, man, he's got some great deals on some Nitro boats and some Ranger boats up there. Some kickback money from Nitro going on, and just go up there and see him. And he has some beautiful boats sitting up there.
Great incentives, but the best incentive about doing business at Renegade Marine is you get to do it with the van meters, and they're solid individuals. Michael Bean, Costa Fisherman, thanks, buddy. Good luck at the Lake of the Ozarks. Please let's get on when you get back and recap on that tournament.
That would be awesome.
Absolutely, buddy. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. Michael Bean, everybody. Nobody does it better, folks. Pabst Beef Jerky, the ultimate high-protein, low-carb snack for anyone on the go, whether you like it spicy, mild, or zesty. Pabst is your source to fuel your outdoor lifestyle. Go to PabstJerky.com and buy in bulk. That's what I do. Don't go anywhere. We're going to come back with two of the best in the business, John Kirby, Josh Honeycutt. Going to talk about some pre, I guess. It's right here. I mean, it's on us. So a few days of pre left is all you got to get out there and get after those bucks you've been looking at all season long and waiting for. So don't go anywhere. We're going to dive right in with those guys. ESPN Radio, Southern Kentucky's Great Outdoors, 102.7.
Just like the United States Army, you'll find brotherhood in high school football. Back for Season 4, U.S. Army ESPN 102.7 Game Night. Join hosts Brian Webb and James Brown. Coming to a high school gridiron near you at 5 p.m. Friday on ESPN 102.7 FM, 12:30 a.m. Also streaming at ESPN Radio 1027.com. Hear the Buffalo Wild Wings Scholar Athlete of the Week, along with interactive Twitter polls, game predictions, and much more, including new coaches, athletic directors, along with player interviews every week. U.S. Army ESPN 102.7 Game Night is also brought to you by by these fine sponsors: Wendy's of Bowling Green Fireplace and Grill, Prylac Executive Realty, Kite Home Center, Oak Tree Awards, L&W Supply, Cheetah Clean Auto Wash, Consignment World of Bowling Green, First Step Orthotics, Northern Kentucky University, Gary Force Paint and Body Shop, U.S. Awning Company, Southern States Bowling Green Co-op, Bowling Green Refrigeration, Heating and Cooling, Trent Bedding Company, and Luxury Imports of Bowling Green, BMW Mercedes-Benz. It's host Brian Webb along with James Brown, 5 p.m. Friday for U.S. Army Game Night on ESPN 102.7. Army Strong.
One of the interesting things about farming is that probably no 2 days are exactly the same. The day-to-day things are not chores to us. They're work sometimes, but yet in the long run, they're things that we are very passionate about doing on a daily basis. We're a part of providing a quality product to our urban neighbors.
From our hands to yours.
We are Kentucky beef producers, helping to feed Kentucky. Kentucky farm families.
Feeding Kentucky. Feeding the world.
The Vance store has in stock today the Liberty Zero-Turn Mower by Skag. The Liberty Zero-Turn Mower by Skag is available at a cut size as small as a 36-inch and as large as a 61-inch. You can buy a 36-inch Skag Liberty Zero-Turn Mower for as low as $39.99.99. You can buy a 61-inch Skag Liberty for as low as $52.99.99. Can you believe it? A 61-inch Skag Zero-Turn Mower for $52.99.99. Get a 5-year warranty, too. Come see the Vance store for a Skag Zero-Turn Mower and get the mower that is simply the best.
In stores now, Pabst Grippo's Beef Jerky. We have taken the great Pabst Beef Jerky and married it with the iconic Grippo's barbecue seasoning. This is a marriage made in beef jerky heaven. The thin cut of Pabst Beef Jerky is dusted to perfection with Grippo's seasoning. Once you try it, you will know no other beef jerky compares. So the next time you're headed on a road trip to the lake or your favorite golf course, be sure to have Pabst Beef Jerky fueling your outdoor lifestyle. PabstJerky.com. Ask for us at your local store.
I am Southern Kentucky Great.
Hunting in East Beverly Hills getting sorrier every day. Me and Duke went as far back in the brush as you could go. The only thing we flushed out was a couple of real estate agents.
It's time to do some hunting on SOKY's Great Outdoors, brought to you by Rock Castle Shooting Center at Park Mammoth Resort, 22850 Louisville Road in Park City, Kentucky.
I am Southern Kentucky Great Outdoors. I am your spirit of the wild, my brother. God bless America. God bless Kentucky. God bless working hard, playing hard American families in the asset column. We are blood brothers.
Welcome back. Time for the Rock Castle Shooting Center hunting segment. Man, they had a big weekend on the Rock last weekend. They've had a big fall, big summer, ending summer, early fall up there. John Kirby, Josh Honeycutt, just going to dive right into it, fellas. What do you got for the listeners tonight?
Go for it, Josh. What are we talking about tonight, brother?
He's looking at his fantasy team.
We're talking about why you should be focusing on the early season instead of the rut to fill your 2019 Kentucky Buck Tag.
Yep, and there's a long version and a short version to that, and obviously the short of it is, the deer are as patternable right now as they're gonna be, and
right.
And so let's just kind of get into the long version of that and talk about the why and the how of it all, Josh.
Yeah, there's 3 times that deer are the most patternable, in my opinion, and that is the very beginning of the season. Well, let me take that back. Outside of the rut, deer are almost always patternable, but there are 3 times that they're the easiest to pattern, in my opinion. And those 3 times are the first week of the season, probably the last full week of October, and then, once you get into the heart of the late season. Those are the 3 times I think that deer are most patternable, even though deer are patternable at almost all times of the season.
Yeah, and
except the rut.
Right, and 99% of that is caused by food, right? And so and that's early season is no exception to that.
Right.
Let's talk about let's just get into it.
Yeah, the biggest reason I think that those are the easiest times to pattern deer, the reasons vary. Early season's my favorite by far because they haven't been pressured, and that's key. Deer haven't been pressured yet, so the first week of the season, the early season, they're patternable. They haven't been pressured, so they're a little bit easier to hunt in my opinion. The pre-rut is probably the second best and the second easiest, and the reason I say that is because they're still on a bed to feed pattern. They're most likely that last week of October, they're probably going to be on the same pattern that they've been on for about at least 2 weeks. From mid-October, if not longer. They might have been on that same pattern for 3 weeks. It just depends on the deer and the circumstances. But the reason that they become a little bit easier to hunt during that phase, maybe even as easy as they are the first week of the season, is because they've got that testosterone building that last week of October, but they haven't really been any does come into estrus yet. So they're feeling it, but they aren't getting to do anything about it.
Right.
And then obviously the late season becomes easier again, in my opinion, because they're past the rut. Deer are trying to refuel. They're worn down. Deer can lose up to 30% of their body weight during the rut. And if you get the right temperatures and the right weather, they're really going to be hitting the food hard. And if there's not going to be a ton of that food left come that time of year, especially as you get toward the end of the late season and the end of deer season itself. Food diminishes, food supply diminishes, and they become kind of clustered and focused in confined areas, and then you can kind of pattern them on those. But, we're not going to talk about all those tonight, but those are, in my opinion, are the 3 best times to hunt deer. The rut is my 4th favorite time. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the early season.
Yeah. So early season's here, right? So that's what we're going to mainly focus on. I do want to just say, caveat the late season with, it's a reason that I'm such a huge proponent of planning late season food plots, man, because if you've got the food late in the season and the weather gets right, nice and cold and nasty, man, you can really get on a good deer then.
Yeah, and I've never done this, but the best way to do it around here is to plant soybeans, fence it off so the deer can't get to it, and leave it fenced until you get outside of the rut, if you plan on hunting the late season.
All right, so let's just jump into early season since that's what's at hand here, Josh. What's happening?
It's all about the food, and it's all about the bedding cover. And right now, you're not looking for thick, nasty beds. You're not looking for that thick, nasty cover that you're really going to want to have and want to hunt around come October and November. Right now, you're looking for a much, much, much different type of bedding cover. You're looking for bedding that still gives deer an advantage safety-wise, but it's not going to look the same. It's not going to feel the same. It's not going to be the same as it will be as the beds that they really focus on and really inhabit come October, November. These beds are going to be more focused on not just safety but also comfort. Deer like to bed on those north-facing slopes. They like to bed in areas that are a little bit more open so that they can get a little bit more of the wind. They still want to have some cover around them, but it's not going to be that thick, nasty cover that they're really focusing on come later in the season. I've noticed this time of year especially, even though deer do this all season long and year-round, they really tend to bed closer to water this time of year, in my opinion, than they do maybe other times of the season.
Yeah, and too, I've noticed a lot of bucks, or a lot of deer, and a lot of bucks, even mature bucks, very, very close to food sources right now. So again, hopefully the folks out there listening have done their homework and they know where these deer are bedding and they know where they're feeding. But just again shows you how important entry and exit routes are. These deer a lot of times are very, very close to the same food source that they're feeding on.
Yeah, and right now, food sources to focus on obviously are soybeans. We're in the ag age these days, especially the crop age. I should be
especially
more specific.
around here too, Josh. Yeah,
right. And so, if there is any green soybeans left at all, there's going to be some deer hitting those. If you have late planted soybeans, then that's where the deer are going to be. Especially if they were planted a month to a month and a half. Or later than the average planting date in that area, that's where the deer are going to be.
Absolutely. No, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. Go ahead.
And sunflowers.
Yeah. Sunflowers is a great food plot.
They wrecked our whole sunflower crop at the Rock, man.
Did they?
Yeah. Every head is pinched off.
I believe
gone.
It. I have not planted a lot of sunflowers in my time, but I did plant a sunflower food plot. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, and it just got demolished. Before the season before it was ever even close to deer season, they had just demolished it.
Well, we have a lot of crops around here. Josh, you alluded to that earlier. And the deer around here I refer to as fence row deer, not big woods deer or mountains deer, really kind of fence row deer, and that's attributed mainly to the vast amount of crops we have. But what do you say, Josh, to a man or woman out there hunting that doesn't have a property that butts up to ag of any kind?
Well, this year this is kind of affecting everybody, even the ag field people. We've had a little bit of an early drop on our mass crop, our hard mass crop. There's a lot of acorns hitting the ground, especially red oaks are dropping early. It's spotty, and it's going to be different from farm to farm, the volume of the mass crop. But, it seems like we're maybe a little below average, maybe close, maybe even right at average as far as the volume of acorns this year, as best I can tell. It's a little bit below average in my areas. But where they are located, they're dropping earlier this year. And usually I don't see the acorns really dropping hard until probably the second, maybe third week of September.
Yeah.
And this year they're already dropping. That third week's probably late, but second week of September is usually whenever I see it. Somewhere between September 7th to September 15th is usually when I start to see a lot of the acorns dropping where I hunt at.
Yeah.
And this year they were dropping by, August 25th probably. So that's obviously going to affect everybody that has acorns this year, even those who hunt mostly ag, because there's going to be some intermittent oaks around those ag fields. And if those oaks are located close to where these deer are bedding at, oftentimes those deer are going to hit those oaks before they even get to the fields and get to the soybeans.
Exactly. That oak flat or wherever those oaks that are dropping essentially turns into, I just went blank.
Staging area.
Sorry, man. Gosh, I totally blanked out there. Essentially, that just turns into a staging area. And exactly what Josh just said. These deer will come in there, feed on these oaks right before dark as a staging area before they hit these open ag fields. Josh, what do you say? And I think we talked about this the other day on our trip to Ohio. But what do you say? What's your theory on? We all know that a buck loses his velvet, and there's a change that happens very quickly after. But I don't necessarily subscribe to the act of them losing their velvet being the culprit to that change. What's your theory on that?
Yeah, we did discuss this the other day, and we both kind of subscribe to the same opinion on this. Personally, I think it's all food based. I don't think it's necessarily has to do with the fact that they're out of velvet. Okay, now they make their mind up to change. I don't think that's what it is. A lot of people also think that bucks start fighting each other and trying to kill each other as soon as they come out of velvet. That's not the case either, because I've seen too many bachelor groups of hard-horned deer for that to be the case. Sure, the testosterone is rising, and once it's actually a threshold of testosterone that's reached that causes that velvet to shed. Once the testosterone levels reach a certain point, that's what actually triggers the velvet shedding process. I don't think that the velvet coming off, though, is what causes them to relocate to their fall ranges, as you mentioned. I think it has primarily to do with food. I think it also has to do with hunting pressure, and I think it even has to do with maybe some other environmental factors, such as the types of bedding cover that are available. Come that time, a lot of the cornfields are coming out, and that's where a lot of deer have been bedding all summer long. And that triggers a change. There's so many different things. There's so many things happening that from early September to mid, maybe even late September in some years, but from, I would say, September 5th to 20th, there's probably a higher volume of changes in the world of a deer than there are at any other time in the season. And that's what really triggers those deer to relocate to their fall range.
Absolutely. And like Josh said, deer don't lose their velvet and all of a sudden start having death matches. In fact, a lot of times, Josh, and I'm sure you've probably seen this, hard-horn bachelor groups will actually lock horns several times throughout the day on many times, and it's not a death match, right? It's that testosterone rising, it's them establishing a pecking order, it's a lot of things, but it's not a death match.
Absolutely.
And that's how they invented the game Mortal Kombat. Watching some deer go, finish him!
Yeah, I used to know the code to Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, you had the cheat code?
Yeah.
I love the cheat code. Yep. All right, folks, we're going to have some fun with it. Coming right back to continue on those great discussions. Josh Honeycutt and John Kirby. Don't go anywhere. Southern Kentucky's Great Outdoors, ESPN Radio 102.7.
This is Nate from Rock Castle Shooting Center. Did you know that one of the premier shooting ranges in the world is right here in South Central Kentucky? Rock Castle Shooting Center has something for everyone's recreational shooting enjoyment. From 3D archery to our brand new sporting clays course, handgun ranges full of steel to targets out to a mile. There's no better place to get some trigger time than Rock Castle Shooting Center. Non-members are welcome, and memberships start at $150 per year. We offer a fantastic range of firearms training and education opportunities from the most basic to the most advanced. Come see us, exit 48 on I-65, Park City, Kentucky. Visit rockcastleshootingcenter.com.
Hey, it's Nick Noble with the Rockcastle Gun Show here. We're talking about Swagger bipods. Do you want just your average barrel rest, or do you want to shoot with some swagger? Introducing the Swagger bipods. They expand your shooting zone with Swagger, the all-terrain hunting bipod. After more than 100 years, finally shooters have a bipod with patented, flexible, hyper-extending telescoping legs that give you the agility like never before. So get rid of stiff legs and get the bipod with infinite maneuverability. Swagger, the bipod that moves.
This is a Morgan & Morgan consumer message.
I'm John Morgan of Morgan & Morgan. An accident takes seconds to occur. Then what should take a great deal of time and research sometimes only takes a day. What lawyer should I hire? Sometimes the firm you hire does many things: bankruptcy, immigration, criminal defense, right there on their website. Would you hire a pediatrician to do your heart surgery? Of course not. This will be a life-changing decision, and all lawyers are not the same. Our firm is an open book. You know us by over 30 years of reputation. If you want to know what a case like yours may be worth, visit forthepeople.com and look at the offers made and verdicts returned by juries for cases like yours. Hundreds of them. The proof is in the pudding. Your lawyer may have never been to court, or rarely. And listen, just because you hired the wrong firm in a rush days after your accident doesn't mean you can't fire them before it's too late. Look before you leap. There is only one Morgan & Morgan. On your cell phone, dial pound law, pound 529. Pound law, that's all. Offices, Bowling Green.
WKU football takes on the University of Louisville in a battle too big for the Bluegrass. September 14th at Nashville's Nissan Stadium, home of the Tennessee Titans. It's a Music City showdown. Hilltoppers versus Cardinals for the fate of the state. Grab your Topper cheering team and act the stands with waving red towels. Call 1-800-5-BIG-RED or visit WKUtickets.com to get seats today. September 14th, the Bluegrass State dukes it out in Music City. WKU versus U of L at Nissan Stadium. See you in Nashville. In Straya, we are a land of plenty. We've got plenty of things to keep you Yanks awake at night, like snakes, dingoes, and unlimited spiders as big as your head roaming the outback. Fortunately, Outback Steakhouse at Bowling Green's got a better unlimited steak and unlimited shrimp. Stop on by and grab your favorite juicy steak off the menu and get ready for all the crispy shrimp or garlic herb butter shrimp your stomach can handle. But you might want to leave a little room for dessert with their new chocolate tower. Outback Steakhouse at Bowling Green. Order online at outback.com.
Welcome back. Southern Kentucky's Great Outdoors hanging out. Nate Noble in the house. We got John Kirby, Josh Honeycutt, Brian Webb here, Garrett Browning behind the board. Guys, we'll finish up with some more deer talk because it's just like, it's almost like the night before Christmas.
Yeah, it's that time of year for us redneck folk.
Yeah, good time to be an outdoors man or woman. There's no question about it. And Josh, just to kind of go along with what we've already talked about, we're going to talk natural food sources a little bit. Go ahead, take it away.
Yeah, the two biggest categories in that department is hard mast, soft mast. And right now, you know, it's obviously the topic of discussion is hard mast, especially red oak acorns. I don't think the white oaks have really started dropping yet. I've seen a few pin oaks hitting the ground. But obviously, in any discussion of natural food sources, a hard mast is going to lead the way.
Absolutely, yeah. It's hard to compete with Mother Nature there on the hard mast. What else? I mean, obviously there's a lot of different types of browse that the deer will focus on throughout the year, and that also is very dependent on where you're hunting and the kind of natural browse that they're having.
Yeah, there are a lot of different oaks that we can really focus on and around here. You know, obviously the most common, probably red oaks, white oaks, pin oaks are the three most common, at least in the places that I hunt. You know, it might be a little bit different from place to place. It might be a little bit different. Some other ones that come to mind is obviously black oaks, which black oaks are oftentimes confused with red oaks. They look very similar when it comes to the leaf. The acorns obviously a little bit different. Swamp white oaks are pretty common in areas that receive a whole lot more moisture. Obviously swamps per the name. They're more common than some of our other oaks, but you got a lot of other stuff out there. You got, you know, beech nuts. You know, a lot of people don't think about that. A lot of people don't think about beech trees as a food source producing tree for deer. But in years where there's not a heavy mass crop as far as acorns go, deer are going to start looking to other trees that produce nuts as well.
Absolutely, and wild fruit trees is another big one. Persimmons, obviously stuff of that nature can be a great food source for your natural food source, and can be worth your time hunting.
Absolutely. There's some other oak trees that you can kind of focus on too. Some of them aren't as common around here, but we mentioned black oak, but bur oak is another one that's somewhat common. This may not be quite as many of those around here as there are the reds and the whites and the blacks, but bur oaks are intermittent across the landscape. Some other oaks that I don't know, I've never seen that many of these around where I hunt at, but I've heard some people say that the cherry bark oaks are in the state. Chinkapin oak is one that's pretty common in some areas. It's another one of those types of oaks that are kind of sporadic and hit and miss. But some people will even say, some biologists I know who have done testing on these, where the Chinkapin oaks are actually located. Deer actually prefer those over white oaks because they're a little bit sweeter than the white oak.
Nate, you all have a big mass crop this year up there at the Rock?
Yeah, it's decent. It's not as big as it was. I think it was last year. It was crazy huge.
Yep, it was a good year last year.
Not as big as that by any means, but I think that early rain really helped a lot of that, get the fruit on the trees at least. And
right.
What survived, who knows?
Sure.
I noticed, a lot of our squirrels wearing out the hickory trees like crazy right now.
Yeah, that's another one, deer will feed on too.
Yep.
Yeah.
And,
the squirrels up there. It sounds like it's raining, doesn't it, when they get to going on?
Man. It's crazy, but yeah, we've got a fair amount of oak, and I've noticed deer feeding on a lot of different types of flowers this time of year.
Sure.
Some of those natural flowering plants, and of course our sunflower patch that we planned on dove hunting. They pretty much ate
They took it over.
Head off of. It's just the flower nipped right off the top and chewed like an apple, probably.
Well, you're hunting, so you're an elk guy at Eastern Kentucky, Nate. So you're in the mountains, obviously. The elk that you all are targeting are probably looking at a lot of these same food sources, right?
Yeah, and up there in the mountains of Eastern Kentucky, it's you'll see them in the timber, but there's so much graze out in the those old strip mines, and
reclaimed stuff,
reclaimed ground,
yeah.
And I would love to key in on what they really eat. They planted all those things thinking it'd be great for wildlife with some foreign Lespedeza grass, and it's worthless for all the animals up there. So that stuff's like 6 foot high, and then there's all these other exotic plants. But I see them grazing a lot on flowers and stuff like that. There's tons of that stuff in those cuts, and just grass and clover.
Clover is huge this time.
I have a camera on a clover patch that those wear it out.
Clover's big. I've actually been watching deer. Most people that are glassing deer from afar this time of year, they're doing it from, over soybean fields. But I've been glassing a clover field all week long, and deer have just been pouring into it.
There's another tree up there in Eastern Kentucky. It's called an autumn olive, and the bears love it when the berries get ripe on it. And I've tried the berries. It's kind of like a boysenberry, kind of bittersweet kind of berry. But glassing last week, I watched a couple elk munching on the autumn olives.
Is that right?
And I never really thought they would do that.
And speaking of non-native...
You almost said munching at Olive Garden, didn't you?
That's never a bad thing. Speaking of non-native, Nate, kudzu, that's not native to Eastern Kentucky, is it? They brought that in, didn't they?
I think it brought in, or, it's so invasive.
And that's something y'all probably deal with on a daily basis.
There's parts of the mountain that are just totally covered, and when it's covered, you can't do anything with it. I mean,
yeah,
it's just as hard to get rid of as anything else.
It's just as hard to walk through.
It's not as much where we are as like in the Carolinas. You see a lot more of it on the Carolina mountains, and we have patches of it that are horrendous. But I just don't go to those places.
Yes, avoid them. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they brought that stuff in. I don't think it's a native, and I think they brought it in for erosion purposes.
Probably.
Yeah,
you see it along the highways a lot.
Exactly.
Probably an erosion control.
I hate to pull us back, but I think one of the biggest, how should I phrase this? One of the biggest horrid things that could ever happen. The biggest mistake, I guess, the modern generation of deer hunter is making right now is not being as in tune with forestry as the hunters of old.
Absolutely.
Guilty.
And I am too.
Oh, sure, me too.
We all are. But I think, and that's why I want to bring it back to Oaks, and maybe we can talk about this for the last few minutes of the show. But, I think that one of the biggest mistakes that we're making as modern hunters is not being as in tune with that aspect of hunting. And trust me, that is a big aspect of hunting. It's not all about ag fields and food plots. So, probably the best... probably the best ranking for oaks, at least around here, and I'm leaving off some of the oaks that I mentioned earlier because some of those aren't as prevalent in this area, especially this area of the state. So the best ranking as far as the oaks that we have around here goes is probably a white oak. And the reason that they're most preferred is because the tannic acid levels are much, much lower, as you've talked about a lot in the past, John. The acidity level is much lower. Pin oaks is probably number 2 on the list. A water oak is probably going to rank about 3rd. A red oak probably comes in somewhere around number 4 or 5. Then you have black oak, bur oak, and some of your other oaks. But those are kind of the top 5, 6 oaks in kind of the order of preference of a whitetail perspective goes. And again, that preference ranking is all based on how sweet that acorn is.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think woodsmanship kind of falls into that same category. Josh, of kind of a lost art that was lost with our grandparents and their parents. Woodsmanship is a big one, too, and I think that all kind of fits together.
Absolutely. When it comes to these oaks, you got to learn how to identify them because that is the biggest factor. Today has been all about early season deer hunting and how to target that opening week deer. And this year, oaks are a factor. So you have to be able to identify your oaks and know what type of oak it is to really determine whether or not it's going to be of high interest to a deer or not. So that all actually starts, that process starts the year prior. That starts with your late season scouting. That starts with your preseason scouting, your postseason scouting and your preseason scouting. You have to go in and identify all the trees on your property and determine where your oaks are. And you need to mark those on a map. And you need to have a rough idea how often they produce a mass crop based on the type species they are, and have a rough idea of when they drop each year. That way, whenever you start hearing reports of different oak trees, starting to drop and starting to release acorns, you can kind of have a rough idea. You won't know unless you physically go in and see it because, even though, a tree might produce every 2 years or produces every year or whatever the actual I've drawn a blank here too. The time it takes for that acorn to reach maturity on that tree, you still have to have a rough idea of where they are on your property because if you don't know where your oaks are, it's not going to be of any use to you. And that all starts during the postseason scouting because you can identify these trees by their bark. But if you can't do that, you definitely need to get out there in the springtime and identify by the leaf, which is actually much, much easier. And make sure you have those marked on a map for when they actually start dropping, you'll know where they are.
Absolutely. That's a great point. And getting better at this identification, oak identification, and just plant identification in general. I'm sure Realtree's got some great resources, don't they, to do just that?
Yeah, we've got loads of resources and articles on Realtree.com. Just type in Realtree and oak or Realtree and oak trees, Realtree acorns. You're going to find all kinds of stuff. All right, I know we're kind of starting to run out of time here, but I got a couple trivia questions for anybody in the room. How many types of oaks are there worldwide? What's the guess?
I'm guessing 100.
Wrong. Higher.
250.
Higher.
1,000.
Lower.
967.
No, 450 types of oaks worldwide. And how many of those are in the U.S.?
100.
All of them.
Pretty close. Anybody else have a guess?
75.
The answer is 90. We have 90 different oaks in the U.S., and I would say we probably, on a really, as far as deer hunting perspective and deer hunting aspects of that goes, we probably deal with, and I say this is how many we have more than this, but as far as what we deal with on a regular basis, I'd say there's probably 8 to 10 at least, if not 15 to 20, depending on your location of state, that really have an influence on your deer hunting here in Kentucky.
If this was awesome. The price was right, I would have beaten John because I went under.
That's right.
That's
Good
all
thinking.
I know.
Nick, you introduced me to an awesome app not long ago.
Yeah, and quick,
I've introduced several people. What is it?
I just pulled it up. It's called Picture This. Identify identify your plant, instantly identify your plants, and it's free for the first like 10 clicks, and then you have to pay for it. But I can tell you what, you take a picture of a plant, and it's yet not to identify it. It's incredible.
That is awesome. So what's it called again?
Picture This.
Picture This.
It's an app on any platform.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, we run out of time, folks. We sure appreciate you listening. We'll be back here next Wednesday, 5 o'clock. SOKY's Great Outdoors, 102.7 FM.